Toxicity spreads like wildfire, and if we're not careful, we get burned. But here's the good news. While we can't always avoid toxic people, we can decide how we engage with them. We get to choose how much space they take up in our lives. So let's talk about 7 ways to keep your peace when you're dealing with toxic people. Let's talk about boundaries, the invisible lines we draw to protect our energy, our time, and our emotional well-being. For some reason, setting boundaries has been painted as selfish, rude, or even unkind. But the truth is, boundaries are an act of love, not just for ourselves, but for others too. Here's the hard part. Many of us struggle with boundaries because we've been conditioned to believe that saying no makes us a bad person. From a young age, we're taught to be agreeable, to keep the peace, to put others' needs before our own. And while kindness and generosity are beautiful qualities, they should never come at the expense of our mental and emotional health. So what happens when we don't set boundaries? We overextend ourselves. We say yes when we want to say no. We allow people to take more from us than we have to give. We absorb other people's problems, emotions, and chaos until we're left drained and resentful. And then when we finally break down, we wonder what went wrong. The truth is, boundaries are not walls meant to shut people out. They are gates meant to protect what's valuable inside. They communicate, this is what I'm okay with, and this is what I'm not okay with. They allow us to show up fully without the exhaustion and resentment that comes from overgiving. Setting boundaries starts with clarity. You can't enforce boundaries if you're not clear on what they are. So ask yourself, what makes me feel drained? What behaviors cross the line for me? Where do I tend to overextend myself and why? Who in my life respects my time and energy, and who repeatedly takes advantage of it? Once you have clarity, you can start setting boundaries in small, everyday ways. Maybe it's letting a friend know you can't always be available at their convenience. Maybe it's telling a coworker that you won't be answering work emails after hours. Maybe it's not engaging with a family member who thrives on negativity and drama. Boundaries without explanation or apology. One of the biggest mistakes we make when setting boundaries is feeling like we owe people an explanation. We don't. No is a complete sentence. Think about the times you've said, I'm so sorry, but I can't, or I really wish I could, but I have too much on my plate. What if instead you just said, that doesn't work for me, or I'm not available for that? No guilt, no over-explaining, just a simple, firm statement. When we explain too much, we invite negotiation. Toxic people will find loopholes. They'll push, they'll test, they'll guilt trip. But when you stand firm in your boundaries without justification, you make it clear that your well-being is not up for debate. Expect pushback. And hold your ground. Here's the thing about boundaries. The people who get upset about them are usually the ones who benefited from you not having any. When you start enforcing boundaries, expect resistance, expect guilt trips, expect people to say, you've changed. But here's the truth. They only say that because you're no longer tolerating what you once did. Some people won't like your boundaries, and that's okay. It's not your job to make everyone comfortable at your own expense. Your job is to protect your peace. Boundaries are a form of self-respect. The strongest, healthiest relationships are built on mutual respect. When you set boundaries, you teach people how to treat you, and the ones who truly love and respect you, they'll adjust. The ones who don't, they'll resist, and that tells you everything you need to know about the role they should or shouldn't play in your life. So if you take one thing from this, let it be this. You do not have to set yourself on fire to keep others warm. You are allowed to take up space. You are allowed to protect your energy. And most of all, you are allowed to say no without guilt, without apology, and without explaining yourself. Toxic people thrive on one thing: reactions. They push buttons, create chaos, and stir up drama, not because they want resolution, but because they want control. The moment you engage in their game, you hand them power over your emotions. That's why one of the smartest things you can do when dealing with toxic people is this: don't take the bait. Why toxic people want a reaction? Toxic people are like fishermen. They dangle the bait. Passive-aggressive comments, manipulation, guilt tripping, or outright provocation, just waiting for you to bite. And when you do, they reel you in. If you get defensive, they've won. They'll twist your words, gaslight you, and make you feel like you're overreacting. If you lash out, they've won. Now they can play the victim and make you look like the unreasonable one. If you try to reason with them, they've won, because toxic people don't want resolution. They want a reaction that keeps the cycle going. They feed off your energy, your frustration, your attempts to fix things. The only way to win is not to play. Recognizing the bait, toxic people are strategic in the way they provoke you. Their bait often comes in subtle, calculated ways, such as backhanded compliments. Oh, wow, you actually did something right for once. Guilt trips. I guess I'll just struggle on my own since you're too busy for me. Blame shifting. I wouldn't have done that if you hadn't made me angry. Triangulation, playing people against each other to create tension and drama. Silent treatment, withholding communication just to make you anxious and force a reaction. The key is to see the bait for what it is: a tactic to pull you into their drama. Once you recognize it, you regain control. Mastering the art of disengagement, here's a simple but powerful truth. You don't have to attend every argument you're invited to. You don't have to respond to every insult, every provocation, or every guilt trip. You can choose silence. Here's how you disengage effectively. Stay neutral. When they try to provoke you, don't react emotionally. Keep your tone calm and neutral. They can't fight with someone who refuses to engage. Use minimal responses. A simple, I see, or that's interesting can shut down their attempts to drag you into an argument. Delay your response. If someone is baiting you over text or email, don't respond immediately. Give yourself time to calm down and craft a neutral response. Or don't respond at all. Exit the conversation. If things escalate, physically or verbally remove yourself. I'm not engaging in this conversation, and walking away is a power move. Let them sit with their own behavior. Toxic people want you to clean up their mess, emotionally, mentally, or even physically. Don't. Let them deal with the consequences of their actions. The power of emotional detachment. Toxic people lose interest when their tactics stop working. They want chaos, but if you refuse to give it to them, they have nothing to latch on to. Detachment doesn't mean you don't care. It means you care more about your peace than their games. It means you understand that not every battle is worth fighting and not every comment deserves a response. It means knowing that your energy is yours to protect. The next time a toxic person tries to bait you, pause. Take a deep breath. Ask yourself, is this worth my peace? Most of the time, the answer will be no. One of the hardest lessons we learn in life is this: we can love people and still choose to walk away. When we think about letting go of toxic relationships, whether it's a friend, a family member, a coworker, or even a romantic partner, we often feel like we're faced with two choices: either stay and endure the toxicity, or cut them off completely with cold indifference. But there's a third option, one that allows us to protect our peace while still honoring the humanity of the other person, detaching with compassion. what it means to detach with compassion. Detaching with compassion means recognizing that while you may care for someone, their presence in your life is not healthy. It means understanding that you are not responsible for fixing them, healing them, or absorbing their pain as your own. It means letting go without hatred, without resentment, and without guilt. Many of us hold on to toxic relationships longer than we should because we believe that walking away means we don't care. That's simply not true. You can have empathy for someone and still choose not to be drained by them. You can wish them well and still recognize that their energy is not something you can continue to carry. Why we struggle to letting go is never easy, especially when we've invested time, love, and effort into a relationship. There are several reasons why we find it difficult. We feel responsible for them if they are struggling. We may believe it's our job to help them, to be there no matter what. But staying in a toxic dynamic out of obligation only leads to exhaustion and resentment. We hold on to hope that they'll change. Maybe if we explain things differently, if we're more patient, if we love them harder. But here's the truth, change has to come from within. You can't force someone to heal if they don't want to. We fear being seen as heartless. People may judge us for stepping back. They might say we're selfish. But prioritizing your mental and emotional health is not cruelty, it's self-respect. We confuse detachment with abandonment. Walking away from a toxic situation doesn't mean you're abandoning the person. It means you're choosing to stop enabling a dynamic that harms you. How to detach with compassion. So, how do you let go while still maintaining kindness and integrity? 1, accept that you can't change them. One of the biggest breakthroughs in detachment is understanding that you are not responsible for another person's healing. You can encourage, you can support, but ultimately their growth is their responsibility. If they continue in toxic patterns despite your efforts, that's not a reflection of you, it's a reflection of where they are on their journey. 2, set clear boundaries. Without guilt, detachment doesn't necessarily mean cutting someone off completely, though sometimes that is necessary. It may simply mean limiting contact, choosing not to engage in their drama, or refusing to take on their emotional burdens. Boundaries are not about punishing them, they're about protecting yourself. 3, let go of the need for closure. Sometimes we think we need a dramatic conversation, a final explanation, or an apology before we can walk away. But closure isn't something other people give us, it's something we give ourselves. You don't need them to understand your reasons, you don't need their validation. You are allowed to close the chapter simply because it's what's best for you. 4, release resentment. Holding on to anger only keeps you emotionally tied to the person you're trying to detach from. Forgiveness doesn't mean excusing their behavior, it means freeing yourself from the weight of it. When you let go with love instead of bitterness, you truly free yourself. 5, they wish them well from a distance. Detaching with compassion means you don't have to hate them, wish them harm, or seek revenge. You can simply say, I hope they find peace, but I can't be the one to provide it for them. This mindset allows you to walk away with grace rather than guilt. Detaching doesn't mean you don't care. The people we walk away from aren't always villains. Sometimes they are people we deeply love who are trapped in their own pain, repeating harmful cycles they may not even realize they're in. But love alone is not enough to sustain a relationship that continually drains and wounds us. Detaching with compassion is an act of strength, not coldness. It's a way of saying, I love myself enough to walk away, and I love you enough to hope you find your own healing. So if you find yourself in a relationship that constantly depletes you, remember this. You are not obligated to carry anyone else's burdens at the cost of your own well-being. You can release them with love, with kindness, and with the knowledge that sometimes the most loving thing you can do is let go. When dealing with toxic people, the most important tool you have isn't logic, confrontation, or even setting boundaries. It's radical self-awareness. Radical self-awareness means paying deep attention to your emotions, your triggers, and your patterns in relationships. It means being brutally honest with yourself about how certain people make you feel and why you react the way you do. Because here's the truth. Toxic people can only manipulate you if you don't understand yourself well enough to see it happening. Why self-awareness is your superpower. Toxic people thrive on emotional confusion. They make you doubt yourself, second guess your reactions, and question whether you're the problem. But when you develop radical self-awareness, you become unshakable. You recognize emotional manipulation the moment it starts. You stop engaging in toxic cycles because you see them for what they are. You regain control over your reactions rather than being pulled into their chaos. Self-awareness gives you clarity, and clarity is power. How to develop radical self-awareness 101. Pay attention to how you feel around certain people. Your emotions are data. They tell you what's working and what's not. But too often we ignore them or rationalize them away. Start asking yourself, do I feel drained or energized after spending time with this person? Do I feel anxious before seeing them? Do I shrink myself, filter my words, or walk on eggshells when they're around? Do I feel respected and valued or dismissed and controlled? Your body and emotions will tell you the truth long before your mind does. If you constantly feel uneasy around someone, trust that feeling. It's not in your head, it's a warning sign. 2, to identify your triggers and patterns. Toxic people know how to push buttons, and if you don't know what your buttons are, they will keep getting pressed. For example, do you feel an overwhelming urge to prove yourself when someone questions your intelligence? Do you feel guilty whenever someone accuses you of not being a good friend, partner, or family member? Do you shut down or over-explain yourself when someone dismisses your feelings? These are emotional triggers, and toxic people exploit them. But once you identify them, you can control your reaction. Instead of falling into their trap, you can step back and say, I see what's happening here. I don't have to engage in this game. 3, own your part in toxic cycles. This one is tough but necessary. Radical self-awareness requires you to take responsibility for how you show up in toxic relationships. That doesn't mean the toxicity is your fault. It means you have the power to change how you respond to it. Ask yourself, am I staying in this dynamic out of guilt, obligation, or fear? Am I trying to fix someone who doesn't want to change? Am I allowing disrespect because I don't want to cause conflict? Am I addicted to saving people even when it costs me my peace? This kind of self-reflection isn't about blaming yourself. It's about empowering yourself. The moment you recognize your role in the cycle, you can step out of it. 4, listen to your inner voice, not just the noise around you. One of the biggest obstacles to self-awareness is outside influence. Society, family, and even our own past conditioning can drown out our inner voice. For example, you might have been raised to believe that family is everything, so you feel guilty for distancing yourself from a toxic relative. You might have been taught to be nice and avoid conflict, so you tolerate disrespect instead of speaking up. You might have been told you're too sensitive, so you dismiss your valid feelings. But radical self-awareness means trusting yourself more than external voices. It means asking, what do I truly feel? What do I truly need? And honoring those answers no matter who disagrees. 5, stop explaining yourself to people who are committed to misunderstanding you. Toxic people love to make you doubt yourself. They'll twist your words, rewrite history, and make you feel like you have to justify your boundaries, emotions, or decisions. But here's a hard truth. Some people don't want to understand you. They want to control you. Self-awareness means recognizing when someone is engaging in good faith conversation versus when they are just trying to exhaust you into submission. If someone constantly invalidates your feelings, stop explaining yourself to them. Your truth doesn't require their approval. 6, be willing to let go of people who don't align with your growth. Growth means outgrowing people, and that's painful. Sometimes self-awareness leads to a difficult realization. Some people only fit into past versions of you. They were compatible with you when you were less confident, when you tolerated more, when you ignored your own needs. But as you grow, those relationships start to feel misaligned. It's okay to let go of relationships that don't fit who you're becoming. It's not betrayal, it's evolution. Self-awareness is a form of protection. Radical self-awareness isn't just about understanding yourself, it's about protecting yourself. When you deeply understand your emotions, your triggers, and your worth, no one can gaslight you into believing their version of reality.